And good evening, everyone. I'm Jonathan McNamara with JMU Sound Off, coming to you for a bonus edition of our show. We're going to take a look tonight at the case for the Group of Five in the college football playoffs. And if you're somebody like me who has spent any time online over the past couple of weeks, then your mentions have probably been inundated with people coming at us at JMU from North Texas, Tulane, as well as a number of other schools arguing against the case for JMU in the college football playoff. But you've also probably seen some major figures in the college football media universe arguing against the concept of a Group of Five team like JMU even being included. And if you're somebody like me, it's felt like those arguments have not been honest, and in many ways have felt like a little bit of gaslighting, as they're ignoring some really powerful data points that are out there. And that's why tonight we wanted to have on somebody who we have respected for a long time in terms of his analysis of the FCS playoff field when JMU was looking back at the 2001 timeframe, and well before, when we were all thinking about the playoffs being the pinnacle of the JMU athletic experience, all the way through the early 2020s when we made the move to the FBS level. The No Bowls website was just kind of a go-to place to have an understanding of where JMU might fit. And now Erik Pitzer is doing a tremendous job breaking down the Group of Five, and that's why we wanted to have him on today. So Erik, thanks for taking some time with us today. I know you have been watching the online debate, not only with the case for JMU for the college football playoff, but really taking an honest look at why the Group of Five must be considered from an honest standpoint if there's going to be any integrity in the college football playoff at all. So I want to have you on to kind of get your thought on this topic and maybe start some kind of high-level positioning on where you think this debate currently stands, because I'm curious if you're like me in thinking that the conversation in many circles around this just hasn't felt like it's been honest. It's a lot of cherry picking of data by the Power Five cartel that seems to want to protect some of those blue blood programs. But as you mentioned in our kind of pre-chat, it really does require a sober and honest analysis if this is going to be something we can all have faith in as we move over the years to come.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna get into those cherry picking points, because you could go up and down every schedule and do it. But at its core, right now, we must demand more of the College Football Playoff Committee when it comes to the Group of Five, because Tulane, it's very simple. They're not the best G5 team. They're not the best on the field. They're not the best when you look at the advanced metrics. They're not the best when you look at the ratings, and they don't have the best record. So the fact that we tuned in last Tuesday expecting to see maybe North Texas, maybe JMU into that top rating, maybe both of them in some order, and then they just put out Tulane and nothing else. That's lazy, and it really does. It starts to question the integrity of the whole process, and you start to wonder, okay, maybe this group of athletic directors and admins are not giving the time of day they deserve. So what I wanted to do is simply state, give some proof. I'm going to look at a couple different things on why this is kind of bogus and what we should be looking at. First off, if you try to justify Tulane being in the college football, being the highest rated G5 team right now, I would challenge you to do it without using the term P4, because that's about their only thing. Oh, they beat two P4, they beat Duke and Northwestern, which those are solid wins, sure.
Yeah.
But Duke and Northwestern are rated, when you look at any type of rating system, the same as Old Dominion, who JMU blew out by 36. So talk about the teams. And the point you made about the cherry picking is the beauty of it is we don't need to go in. We don't need to go in and pick. There are computers and there are brilliant statisticians out there who cover this every single week, every single day, that put together all these metrics. All that data is out there, asking to be used. And so just a couple of my favorites I love looking at. If you want to look at the Sagarin ratings, those have been around for a long time. They're a gold standard when it comes, especially when it comes to some, point spread and predictive stuff. And if you look at it right now, Tulane right there is the 6th best non-P4 school on that list. And then if you look at Bill Connolly's SP Plus, which is another great system he's developed over the last decade, they are 10th of non-P4 teams in his rating, 53rd in there, and they're over on 54th.
To level set there, can you give me a little bit of sense of what kind of data points they're pulling in to create these ratings? So it's more than just points scored, I assume, and final results. But like for somebody who's not a data analysis, could any insight into what goes into these formulas and why, for at least from your perspective, they are kind of a gold standard tool in terms of looking at two programs and comparing them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into
layman's terms, like high level.
They're both different in their own rights, but I think to give you a good example, especially let's start with the Sagrins here. And if we're talking about honestly picking, okay, who should be the highest rated G5 team from a committee, I think you got to look at two things. You have to look at these. You can't just go by computer ratings. You can't, because then you have a team like a 7-loss South Carolina team who in the Sagrins, I believe, is probably in the top 25 because they are very good, but they just lost a lot of games. So, you can't use those purely for that. And right now with looking at both of those, and if you look at any of those metrics, and like I said, I'm not gonna dive into. You can go look up the Sagrin, go look at the SP Plus. They have great methodologies for them. But the same thing, if you look at any of those, is right now, and this is not to mention some of my other favorites when you get into some of the net success stuff, and when you get into some of the adjusted opponent adjusted EPA per play bet. Those are the ones I love looking at throughout the season too. But the common theme is with all of these things, is you see three teams come out at the top right now, and that's JMU, North Texas, and Toledo. Toledo has phenomenal advanced metrics, but Toledo's lost 4 games. So I think any reasonable person would say, okay, that's fine. They're not in this conversation right now. Okay, well, why aren't North Texas and JMU? If it seems very simple, and it is. They have the best records too. Not only do they have these best advanced metrics, they also have the best records. And so if you're not including either or both of those teams, and that's what the committee should be doing. If you want the human element to it, and you want this discussion around, and there should be some human element to it, and figuring out they should be going into those games with North Texas and JMU and going head to head with them, be like, North Texas, they beat Washington State pretty well, but did that Washington State team look like the same team that played JMU? And you look at, they got, North Texas, they got blown out by South Florida. That's a pretty bad loss. Well, JMU, they didn't play too well at Georgia State, who's a very bad team. So you look, and that's what they should be doing. But to sit here and take the 10th best team who doesn't have the best record and just trot them out there because they're a familiar name, I think that's what draws the anger. And I think we must demand a little more of the
and for me, it's been clear throughout this entire process just how little college football some of these people who are making these very grand pronunciations about who belongs and who doesn't actually watch. And I saw today in the media press conferences from Coach Chesney and stuff talking about looking at Louisville, for example, because I saw CBS Sports, one of their analysts came out and said, well, the JMU's loss to to Louisville is kind of aging like milk. It's just it shouldn't be considered really anything of validity. But Chesney came out and said, well, look at Louisville when we played them. They were at full strength. They had their top running back was playing well, their top receivers. Like the Louisville team now that's struggling is not the same team that we played them. And that goes to your point about just why an honest look at these teams and the landscape that they were navigating through when they played these games is so important. This Washington State team that JMU just played is not the same Washington State team that played North Texas. We're more inclined to have played the team that played Ole Miss and UVA very well. And if you're not getting into those games and really getting into the nitty gritty of what went on, it makes it, again, not feel like it's an honest and sober analysis of the case for JMU or the case for North Texas. I think
this could even be going in the favor of some of the American teams. It could be the case for Memphis, who didn't have Brendan Lewis when they lost to UAB. I mean, they lost again, so that kind of took them out of it. But that would be a very valid point, I think, that you should consider. And these are things you should consider. And that, you talk about Louisville with JMU. And I believe up until just this past Saturday, JMU was the only team to hold Louisville under 300 yards. So, I mean, you look at that, and all those little points should be discussed. But instead, they're coming out and they're going, well, Tulane's been here before. Oh, they're in the American. They're tied at the top of the American, who is, in fairness, the best rated conference of the G5.
And that's that goes, it's a roller coaster. You're going to have the Sun Belt higher some years, the American Summit. It really is an ever changing landscape. And that's to me where if there's been a point of this that's really I've found to be particularly grating is this argument about, well, like, look at the JMU schedule this year. It just doesn't merit. How many conversations have we had going into the season thinking that this JMU schedule was going to be the most challenging by far in program history? You look at a Liberty team that had been picked to finish near the top of Conference USA and the pedigree that they've had in their conference level. Programs like App State, ODU, Georgia Southern, all who have historically been tremendous programs. That game against Louisville. I mean, this was a schedule on paper that you would think that if you had a record like JMU is potentially going to have at 12-1, that you would have been a lock in the college football playoff. And it's not JMU's fault that when they make the schedule years ago, that the teams in the Sun Belt will kind of fall apart. And that's made particularly even more challenging when we hear these stories and reports out of how hard it is now for JMU to find Power Four opponents who are willing to not only come to Harrisonburg, but even host JMU in their venue on 2-for-1 deals. So it seems to me as like the whole schedule argument is even more disingenuous when we don't control in many instances who we get to play, especially when the cartel and the ACC and these are basically making it impossible for us to get games. And it just feels more and more as I've been listening to this debate around it that the walls are coming in. There's this inevitable breakup, which we've heard, where you have maybe the SEC and the Big Ten or some of these other schools break off. It just seems like they're doing everything in their capacity to even eliminate the possibility of hope, which for me, I used during yesterday's show for Sound Off the analogy of looking at the NHL, and I know you're a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. The beauty of the NHL this year is parity across the board, and how many more teams feel like they have a shot as you move towards Thanksgiving, and that's because they've leveled the playing field. And it seems like college football is trying to go the opposite direction. They just, from even a naked capitalism perspective, it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I mean, and there are many good points there, but at the bottom line, we need to come up with just a simple baseline of hey, do your job, do the job you're meant to, spend the time you need to, and be able to justify it. Don't come out. You can come out and talk about strength of schedule. Yes, Tulane has a higher strength of schedule than JMU or North Texas, but guess what? They have a worse record. Strength of schedule is really only relevant if you're talking about two teams with the exact same record. So don't come here. Don't talk about P4. Don't talk about strength of schedule. There's a 2-loss team when there's 1-loss teams who have better advanced metrics, who have computers that say you can use the old BCS computer rankings. Guess what? Tulane is not in there. Who is? James Madison, North Texas, because they are able to analyze every bit of every game and all the data points and figure that out without just a couple people in a room being lazy and going, okay, we're going to look at this, and these are the points we're going to decide. And that's so. Season's not over. It's not a done deal yet. There's still time to correct this if you're out in the committee and you have some sway. And and again, obviously, this is the JMU podcast, and we would love to see the Dukes in there. But I think if you're being honest I think JMU or North Texas, as it stands right now, are very, very equal when it comes to resumes.
So just high level, I'm just curious though, as now there's even an ongoing debate about what the appropriate number of teams it should be in the college football playoff field is. I know ESPN now pushed the deadline. It looks back to give athletic directors a little bit more time to agree on what's the appropriate format. Have you given any thought to that? Obviously, I know you are very fond of the SCS playoff model, which expanded over time, and especially when you compare to professional sports, the percentage of teams in any given league that make a version of the postseason. And when you look at it from the perspective now of the portal and the coaching carousel window and overlapping with people's playoffs push, that obviously is something that needs to be addressed. But have you given any thought to, at least in your eyes, what the maybe the optimal playoff model would look like?
I haven't, honestly, no, because I think you kind of need to see it in action first.
Yeah,
I don't mind 12 right now. I think it's still weighted more towards the power conferences, but I think that's a concession at this point that we're willing to make just to get a seat at the table. But that's only if there's a fair seat at the table, which I think is what's frustrating me right now is we're still not seeing that fair seat at the table. Is when they're picking teams based on unjustifiable reasons. So if you can't decide it on the field, then what are we doing here?
Yeah, well, it makes me wonder, is there going to be, a time where you're seeing it in college basketball now, where you have the Max Sun Belt Challenge and things like that. Are you going to have some scheduling agreements maybe between the American, the Sun Belt, and the MAC to try to at least give you some comparables in terms of teams that are playing cross conference to see who to rank higher, if it's going to be an American versus Sun Belt? Is that a possible solution? Is it the Group of Five Super Conference? I've seen that kind of mentioned as an idea out there. It's just, I know there's a lot of thought around this topic, and could probably put 2 or 3 of these podcasts together talking about what the optimum thing is. But just trying to, at least for me, I'm trying to get to, if we're going to have these debates in the future when games against Power 4 teams are going to be harder to come by, how do we develop better data points and better arguments to show who is going to be the top in these conferences? And let's be honest, anytime there's a subjective aspect to this, there's going to be debate, and that's what makes it fun. But I'm sure there are people smarter than me, at least, thinking about some ways that you would be able to do that.
Well, no, and I mean, I don't think there's any way to solve. There's always going to be scheduling imbalances, even like you said, even if you have what you think is a really challenging schedule, a strong schedule, things happen throughout. It's college football. Things are going to happen throughout the season. What I think does need to happen is I think there needs to be a better base of analytics that are being used in a very transparent set of analytics that are being used and discussed, and an honest discussion about that, because it's out there. Yes, we play imbalanced schedule. Yes, there are 136 teams that are playing all different varying degrees of schedules, but there are a lot of smart statisticians out there that can sift through all that noise, and you can put a lot of those together and come up with a pretty clear picture of who the best teams are in any given group that you want to.
Well, it makes you wonder. I mean, you're going to want athletic directors, obviously, in the room as part of the committee to make this decision, but it also begs the question, like, should there be a group of analysts and data scientists that are a part of that decision-making process? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I would say absolutely.
Yeah. And then there's so many different ways you can look at it. I just think that, again, your broader point, bigger picture thing is bringing more people into the discussion room to make sure you're getting an honest picture and an honest look at it, not just the headline. I often question these things is how much of the Group of Five have these athletic directors watched, how much of JMU, how much of North Texas have they actually seen? And I never get the sense that it's a lot, because based off the reaction of some of the major figures in college football media, for every Chris Vanini, who I think does a really great job, who's sober, honest analyst who looks at everybody, I think there's 4 or 5 who were just watching the SEC and Big Ten and just kind of, put their nose up to the Group of Five and the whole concept.
I'm not going to sit here and call people out and name people, because I don't know. I don't know what everyone's doing with their time and what they're looking at. But what I do know is that when you come out and you have an entire college football structure, a whole system that is relying on you to do your job and produce a fair ranking of these teams, and you come out and you don't do that, it calls into the integrity of the whole system into question. And I think that's a huge problem. And I hope to see that give it some better eyes in the coming weeks. I'm not holding my breath, but we'll see.
Well, since this is a JMU podcast and you've been a longtime fan of the program, I did want to ask you just your thoughts, high level, on this 4-year period of transition for JMU to FBS. And it's not long ago that we were doing a similar show looking at what our route to Frisco was going to look like in the FCS playoffs, and who would we be playing, and who'd be our opponent after the bye, and you were helping to pick at-large bids and everything in that. What has it been like for you, this transition? Obviously, it's exceeded all expectations, and even our most wildest and optimistic viewpoints would have been. It's been pretty special, and I know it has been for you as well.
Well, you don't know how wild some of my dreams and expectations could be.
Sure.
I think in some in some sick part of my brain, this has always been the possibility. But even just now, I think I sent a little Instagram graphic or reel, something that popped up to my buddies who were I was with in school 20 some years ago. That was basically just like every single power team: Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia, everyone. And it was like 12, and then JMU was the highest percentage to make the college football playoffs. I'm like, these do seem a little surreal to see that you're just being discussed constantly in the group of all these, historical programs. But it goes to show what a job. It's not just one person or one coach or one player or one fan. It's everybody together. It's the collective athletic directors and coaches and players that have all come before us and all set, it's the standard. And I think that's it's been fun because, you saw the possibilities of it being there, and to see it actually, you don't always see that come to fruition. I think there's a lot of schools out there where I think East Carolina is a great example of a school that would kind of follow that trajectory. When I was even in middle school and high school, I remember kind of following those teams as like the underdog team and up and coming. Oh, that's fun to win.
The Boise's of the world, and
you could see they've stalled out, and leadership has gone multiple directions there, and they're kind of just floundering here. So I think, I don't take it for granted any season. That's why. That's why.
Yeah.
I think
I'm
so passionate about this because you don't know what's coming.
You just don't know. And it can fall off It can fall off faster than you realize. And I mean, we had obviously the great run in 2004, and then 2008, obviously a magical season, and then we had a little bit of a dip for a number of years. It's if you miss on a quarterback, or you have a major injury, or you miss on a coaching hire, it's just not guaranteed, and that's why you don't take these seasons for granted. I just did want to ask you one last question, because you were in Bridgeford Stadium this past Saturday against Washington State, the biggest brand to ever play a game in Bridgeford. I said on our show this Sunday, this was the season for me that felt like our fan base really grew up. For me, seeing the student section as full and engaged as it was yesterday, or on Sunday or Saturday, was special. And just, I remember when you were running the Student Duke Club and everything that was going on in your time at JMU. Again, those seeds were planted then for what it could be today. What was your reaction to Saturday? Because there were times I was a little emotional, because it was so cool and so good to see that these students now, they don't know what JMU that's not this. And that to me is pretty special.
Yeah, you said it right there. There's not much more to add to that. I mean, to see, I think we've been so accustomed to being too good that we're blowing out teams by halftime. It just became a thing. Okay, well, I'm going to go to the game. We're going to be up by 30 at halftime, and the game's going to be in hand. I'm going to go, get a head start on the partying. And I think, it's a more knowledgeable student body and fan base now, where they recognize this is not going to be an easy game. This is a good team, and we're in a dogfight, and nobody left, and they stayed, and they were loud the whole time, and it was incredible. But I think it did say. I think the first time was probably that App State 2008 game. We're down 21-0 at halftime. Yeah. Nobody left. Nobody left that game.
It was special. That was a special atmosphere.
When you're playing good teams, that this is not going to be a game we're just going to show up and head out. So I think getting those quality opponents in there is a huge factor.
I will say my last thing, since you brought up 2008, though, to show how far this program has come and why we have so many more knowledgeable fans, is us trying to watch away games on laptops at places like Banditos, where we're running cables in. You don't know if it's going to get in. You don't know if the internet connection is going to be strong enough. We have all come a long way. I remember going to Home Team Grill in Richmond and trying to barter with the manager there to plug a laptop in. And at one game, they couldn't get it on TV, so we all just sat around the laptop and watched the game. So it's just insane that now.
I remember when living in New York City, I had to find it when a game was on CN8.
Yep, CN8. Yeah, that's the people forget that's a lot of the games in that 2008 season.
And no one in New York City had Comcast. Everyone had DirecTV or the satellite. So I had to go find a bar in Hoboken that actually had Comcast cable, and they got the channel. It's just like these.
It's wild times, man. Time. We're earning the gray hairs and the bald spots are coming honestly to us now. But Pitzer, thanks you. I know there are many people that are going to watch this. They're going to be very, very appreciative of the efforts that you put into helping us understand the FCS playoff bracket and where we would stand. I know that that was a lot of hours you dedicated to that, and that's now part of history, but you're turning your sights on to helping us kind of fit where we're going to be in not only this college football playoff race, but many to come. So I know it's appreciated, and seriously, anytime you give out a hot take, you've got a platform to do it. And are you going to be able to make it down for the December 5th game? Do we know yet?
You have to ask my wife.
Okay. Well, Kelly, we'll write her a note. Let Zach come out. Let Zach come to play. Let Erik come to play. We got to get everybody. It's the first championship. You never get a second chance. So Well, I'll see you there. You'll be there.
Hey,
Order your
cheers.
tickets by Wednesday.
Thanks so much for having me on, and thanks for the Duke. It's awesome to see what Sound Off has done.
All right, we'll see we'll talk to you soon. But guys, again, this is just a little bonus pod as we have some fun looking at the group of 5 in the college football playoffs. Stay tuned over the days and weeks to come for more coverage related to this issue. And remember, if you're somebody who wants to be in your seats on December 5th for JMU's game in the Sun Belt title game in Harrisonburg, get your tickets by Wednesday. Duke's at Coastal Carolina this Saturday in Conway, South Carolina. And then again, we will turn our attention to the first ever Sun Belt Championship game appearance December 5th inside Bridgeforth Stadium, 7 p.m. on ESPN. And with that, we'll talk to you soon. Go Dukes.